and may not be here for a moment. So please wait for a moment if I have a problem. And okay, we can start. What are software requirements? The description of the system, service, and constraints that are generated during the requirements engineering process. Developed during the first phase in the software development life cycle. Requirements are the most misunderstood part of system development, and yet the most crucial. Requirements set out what the system should do and define constraints on its operation and implementation. The requirements must be discovered and specified before starting to build the product. Defining requirements is the basis for the work on the project. Determining the detailed project plan, defining the system architecture, selecting methodology of implementation, and selecting equipment. From the sociological perspective, requirements come from people who all behave in different ways, speak different language, and get problem under consideration into different perspectives. As engineers, we should assume that our partners or customers do not really know their requirements and cannot specify them. The requirements document is the official statement of what is required of the system developers. Should include both a definition of user requirements and a specification of the system requirements. The result of a software requirements specification process is a document named Software Requirement Specification, SRS, which should be clear and complete. The good way to start writing SRS is to follow a Volare requirements specification developed by Susan and James Robertson. And here you see the link to their website. This standard describes what should be in the SRS and which rules should the writer obey to end up with a good quality specification. The SRS should provide the basis for agreement between the suppliers and customers. A good written SRS can be used to estimate the cost and schedules of the development of the software. The requirements stated in the SRS are the baseline for validation and verification plan. The SRS writer should address a few things. Functionality. What is the software supposed to do? External interfaces. How does the software interact with people, the system's hardware, and other software? Performance. What is the speed, availability, response time, recovery time of various software functions? Attributes. What are the portability, correctness, security, etc.? And design constraints imposed on an implementation. Are there any required standards in effect, implementation language, policies for database integrity? And we have a few methods, requirements, description methods. Natural language, structured language, and form-based specification. And natural language is not recommended as a specification language, mainly because of its lack of clarity. Lack of clarity because precision is difficult without making the document difficult to read. Requirements confusion. Functional and non-functional requirements tend to be mixed up. And requirements amalgamation. Several different requirements may be expressed together. Ambiguity. Natural language is naturally ambiguous. The readers and writers of the requirement must interpret the same words in the same way. Over flexibility. The same requirement could be described in a number of different ways in the specification, and lack of modularization. Natural language structures are inadequate to structured system requirements. You see a few recommendations if you decide to use natural language. Remember to define a standard format and use it for all requirements. And use language in a consistent way. For example, use shall for mandatory requirements and should for desirable requirements. And use text highlighting to identify key parts of the requirements and avoid the use of computer jargon. Believe it's not understandable for everyone. And next method is a structured language. The freedom of the requirements writer is limited by a predefined template for requirements. All requirements are written in a standard way, and the terminology used in the description may be limited. The advantages is that document is written in the natural language, but the language is more unambiguous. And a third method, a form-based specification. It could be used to define function or entity as well. It is usually used in structural analysis to describe process behavior, and it describes inputs and outputs and where they come from and go to. Additionally, it describes necessary relationship between input, output, and stored data. It could describe the function side effect, of course, if any. And we have 3 requirements types: functional requirement, non-functional requirements, and domain requirements. And few words about functional requirements. These are the requirements that the end user specifically demands as basic facilities that the system should offer. All these functionalities needs to be necessarily incorporated into the system as part of the contract. They are represented or stated in the form of input to be given to the system, the operation performed, and the output expected. There are basically the requirements started by the user, which one can see directly in the final product, unlike the non-functional requirements. And functional requirements in few short words. Specify what the system must do. Action the product must take. derived from main goal of the product, it is not a quality and characterized by verb. For example, TVRS shall automatically connect with the policeman, vehicles, and offense databases. And non-functional requirements, these are basically the quality constraints that the system must satisfy according to the project contract. The priority of extent to which these factors are implemented varies from one project to other. And they are also called non-behavior requirements. And non-functional requirements in a few words. Properties or qualities that the system must have, characterized by adjectives and checklists: look and feel, usability, performance, maintainability, and portability. And for example, the interface between the user and the TVRS must have a maximum response time of 2 seconds. And let's go to planning of an IT project. Without any plan, you are wasting money, time, and energy of people involved in the project. The planning process includes elements such as decision-making, choice of course of action, and management efficiency. Planning is usually understood as a set of action helpful in setting organizational goals and determining the way of their best implementation. Planning is also an integral part of an IT project whose task is to achieve the project's objective with regard to its limitation. There are several characteristics of a good plan. First, purposefulness. The plan must lead to the goal set. Feasibility, the possibility of implementation, consistency, internal compliance of the plan with no contradiction. Operability, clarity and legibility that does not make it difficult to understand. Rationality, basing on reliable knowledge. Flexibility, the possibility of making change during implementation. Detail at the optimum level. Long distance, preclusion, and completeness. After completing the first stage of preparation for the project, you already know few things. What it will concern, who will participate in, with what is the estimated cost, and what resource the organization has. The purpose of planning is to prepare the appropriate course of action, and its quality determines to a large extent complete undisturbed communication between all stakeholders. We have tasks performed at the planning phase can be presented in a form of 8 steps, which include, and I will tell you more about each of these steps. First step is identification of task. During the implementation of these steps, decisions are made regarding specific activities, assigning tasks to individual employees, the manner of their implementation, and this resource needed to perform them, and the time limits of these tasks. The project team In the case of a small project, or the project manager together with the substantive team draw up a certain unstructured list of tasks guided by their knowledge and expectation. And the next step, second step, ordering tasks. In these steps, the division of work, it's so-called project structuring, is carried out. The composition of the project from the general idea of the project to individual tasks and their groups. And the result of this activity is the creation of the work breakdown structure, WBS. The division is the starting point for the further management of the project. A detailed work breakdown structure is the basis for planning and controlling the course of project work. And next step, third step, determining the impact of the project of the environment. To properly determine the impact of the task carried out on the project's environment, it is helpful to find answers to the following questions. Will the project affect other projects? Will the implementation of any task not cause the necessity of launching a completely new project? Does the project will have an impact on the flow of information or financial process in the company? And last question, will the employees, customers, and the environment feel the implementation of the project? And next step, estimating the necessary resources. Estimate in relation of each of the identified tasks, financial resources and human resources, including the definition of the critical dates and qualification necessary to carry out the project. And next step, clarifying the hierarchy of the project team and its functioning in the company's structure. And this is the moment when the arrangement for the structure of the project team adapt in the first phase of the project are formalized. It is determined whether the adapt hierarchy of the project team is clear, understandable, and suitable for everyone. This is a clear definition of who is who and what position he is entitled to, and who will deal with the implementation of tasks, who is controlling and who is coordinating. And next step, to formulate general principles. At this stage, it defines who signed the reports, who organized meetings, what will be the decision-making process, who will solve the conflicts, and what type of documents are in use. In carrying out all these steps, the project team gets the information needed to create a detailed project plan. And next step, determine competences. The result of the work of these steps are the responsibilities of individual team members and their competences. And the last step, creation of control procedures. And here is determine what and how to be controlled, how the progress of works will be measured, which channels will be distribute control information, as well as the criteria determining the acceptance of a particular part of the work. We have three basis parameters of the project: cost, time, and quality. And these three things determine the creation of three most important plans from the point of view of success, namely financial plan, which is about project budget, time plan, this is project schedule, and quality assurance plan. And few more words about work breakdown structure. WBS is a hierarchical division of partial products on the work packages. The WBS method is usually used to design or confirm the actual scope of the project and allows to define the level of detail of tasks common to all project stakeholders. The lower the level, the more detailed the division. A work packages is a group of related tasks within a particular project. They resemble mini project or sub-project because they are individual tasks that contribute to the overall goal of a larger project. A work packages is the smallest unit of work that a project can and should be broken into when creating a work breakdown structure. The work breakdown structure can be presented in the form of tree diagram, and this is the most popular method, task list and cascade. As you make a work breakdown structure, use the following rules for best results. The 100% rule. The work represented by your WBS must include 100% of the work necessary to complete the overarching goal without including any extraneous or unrelated work. Also, child task on any level must account for all of the work necessary to complete the parent task. Mutually exclusive. Do not include a subtask twice or account for any amount of work twice. Doing so would violate the 100% rule and will result in miscalculation as you try to determine the resources necessary to complete a project. 3 levels. Generally speaking, WBS should include about 3 levels of details. Some branches of the WBS will be more subdivided than others, but if most branches have about 3 levels, the scope of your project and the level of details in your WBS are about right. Make assignments. Every work packages should be assigned to a specific team or individual. If you have made your WBS well, there will be no work overlap, so responsibilities will be clear. Outcomes, not actions. Remember to focus on deliverables and outcomes rather than action. For example, if you were building a bike, a deliverable might be the braking system, which action would include calibrate the brake pads. And last rule, the 8-80 rule. There are several ways to decide when a work package is small enough without being too small. This rule is one of the most common suggestions. A work package should take no less than 8 hours of effort, but no more than 80. And here you see work breakdown structure example. we have built a house. Notice how the rules of building a WBS are applied in this example. First, the house building project is subdivided in 3 large sections that seem to make sense: foundation, exterior, and interior. Those sections are further subdivided to 1 or more levels for a maximum of 3 levels. And the effort needed to build a house has been allocated across all of the work packages for a total of 100% effort. There is no duplication of work represented in this diagram. To further enhance this diagram, it will be possible to add the budget for each work packages and assign a team. And this is our last slide for today. Of course, I will share you this presentation at ePortal. You can see this example then. And okay, so have a nice day and see you next week.
Thank you.